Welcome to Donington Park for the BRSCC Clubsport Trophy. This is the second Clubsport Trophy race to be held this year. The first was at Brands Hatch earlier in the season and was won by Aidan Hills and Paul Sheard on the last lap in their Mazda MX-5. This is a 45-minute race, and as you can see there are dark clouds above us. It's going to make weather interesting. Now, the class of cars out here are a complete mix. We've got Honda Civics on the front two rows with Max Lewis on pole position. Further back, we have Mazdas, we have Caterhams, and even a Ford Capri. This is going to be a fun race to watch. It's over to Andy McEwan to take you through all of the action.
Thanks, Lloyd. Well, the cars lining up then on a greasy circuit, and Civics to the fore then, with Max Lewis and Bruce Winfield sharing the front row, Ben Sharp and Daniel Reason on row two. Then it's Ben Buckley in the Caterham 270R with the Keith Isaac and Kevin Fulbrook Mini alongside, with Paul Taylor and Mark Thomas in the Capri sharing row four. The dark BMW is on row five with Alfie Jones' Civic, then Scott Ferguson ahead of the Declan Lee, and Richard Breland shared Mark III MX-5. Darren Stapleton and then Gary Townsend share the seventh row with another pair of MX-5s ahead of Leon Shepherd and Chris Dawkins. And then the rest further back, we've got BMWs, we've got Mark 1 and Mark 3 MX-5s, Alfa Romeos, Ford Focuses, more Minis as well, even the Citroen Saxo at the back of the grid, the Kite and Allen number 72 car coming from the very rear of this mammoth 40-car entry. 45 minutes then will be the duration of our second ever BRSCC Clubsport Trophy race. The Civics on the front row, then the white car Max Lewis alongside him Bruce Winfield in the orange machine, the cars they compete in regularly in the Civic Cup. Red lights go on, they go out now. We're away and racing here for 45 minutes on the Donington Park National circuit. What a sight they make. Already one car on the grass, that's the number 11 MX-5 of Declan Lee and Richard Breland, I believe, but it's wheel to wheel for the lead of the race, and around the outside goes Bruce Winfield. He gets the lead into the first turn. Daniel Reason also has had a good start there in the black number 77 Civic, but the next question is, will they all get through this first corner safely? The answer unfortunately is no, and that's the dark BMW that's gone round, I'm afraid, the 210 car. Cars scatter left, right and centre, everybody trying to take avoiding action. Thankfully, I think significant contact was avoided by most of them. The Alfa 156 there appears to have slowed a little bit further down the order. Everybody, I think, got away with that more or less okay. It's Winfield that's got the lead at the old hairpin then. Max Lewis in second, Daniel Reason third, so a Civic 1-2-3. The interloper is Ben Buckley in the Caterham 270R, who has actually gained a position on Ben Sharp's Honda Civic. Sharp's lost ground here off the start, but he's fighting back again as the Civics rather gang up on the Caterham now, actually. Also coming through, I believe, is Paul Taylor there. In fact, Paul Taylor right on the tail now of Ben Sharp as they go up towards Coppice Corner, but the Caterham much lighter, is quicker through the corners. Oh, it's all kicked off though. Bruce Winfield runs out wide. Max Lewis gets tagged in the tail by Daniel Reason, and it's side by side now. It's almost like this is a Civic Cup race, but with that random Caterham in the middle of it all, which is much quicker through the corners because of its much less significant weight, but doesn't seem to have the power maybe if the Civic's in a straight line. Winfield hangs on to the lead then. Lewis in second. Round the outside goes Ben Buckley to just about get third place. In fact, he almost has Daniel Reason out on the grass coming out of the chicane. What a first lap that was, and it's still side by side for the lead because Max Lewis is coming back at Bruce Winfield again. Wheel to wheel down to Redgate Corner then. Lewis on the outside, Winfield on the inside line. It's Winfield who's later on the brakes and turns into Redgate in front. The Caterham of Ben Buckley has been shuffled to the back of that queue again. Mark Thomas's Capri comes by. Well, that was breathless stuff, and that was only the first lap of the race, and we saw this sort of action continuing for most of the 45 minutes at Brands Hatch last time out, and now we've got more changing going on because that looks like Ben Sharp coming through into second position, is it, or is it Paul Taylor? It might actually be Paul Taylor that's come through having started 7th on the grid. It is Taylor into second place now, and Max Lewis going backwards, so it's Winfield from Taylor the top two. Daniel Reason coming through into third position now. Ben Sharp then is the one that's lost out. He's down to about 5th at this stage, with Ben Buckley still sort of trying to figure out exactly where he falls in with all of these Civics. Over the course of a lap, he's every bit as quick as them, but through some of the high-speed sections, he does seem to be struggling a little bit. There goes Ben Sharp, back round the outside of Daniel Reason. Bruce Winfield, though, is really struggling for confidence here at the front of the pack, and as a result, through the corners, everybody's sort of falling over each other to try and get past him. Side by side for the lead now with Paul Lewis getting two wheels on the grass going... Oh, sorry, Paul Taylor, two wheels on the grass going down the exhibition straight. Winfield, though, has the inside line. He's got to be late on the brakes, though. Paul Taylor's later on the brakes. brakes, but he can't turn in, and so somehow it's still Winfield that leads the way. Taylor second just about. Ben Sharp's coming back at him now. He's all over the curb and goes through, and Daniel Reason gets a run too. This is fantastic stuff. You'd think this was a 5-lap sprint race, not a 45-minute mini enduro, but Bruce Winfield somehow through it all has held on to the lead of the race. It's Ben Sharp in second, Daniel Reason going up the inside now though into Redgate Corner. These slippery conditions are not helping either, are they? Well, they're helping create some good racing, but it's not helping the drivers really understand where they need to be placing the car. It's not really fully wet, so the traditional wet lines are not necessarily the way to go, but at some parts of the circuit they seem to maybe be the quicker way through. Bruce Winfield takes a very strange line through the crane of curves there, but again they're all sort of queuing up behind him now. But it's this time Ben Sharp who moves up to challenge as they come out of the old hairpin. Towards Starkey's corner, Max Lewis is up the inside of Daniel Reason, who's been up and down like the proverbial yo-yo so far in this race. He's been as high as first and as low as sixth, I think, at one point. Around the outside now, they're an increasingly damp part of the circuit up here at McLean's and Coppice. This is the direction from which the weather is coming, and it's only set to get wetter, I think, as the race goes on. And Sharp looks to be a little bit more confident in these slippery conditions than Bruce Winfield. Winfield, though, had the grippier line through Coppice there, gets off the right-hander a little bit better than his Civic rivals behind him. And Winfield now then heads down the exhibition straight with Paul Taylor starting to join in the fun again as well. He's looking up the inside now, Ben Sharp into the chicane. Lock up from Winfield, but he turns into the corner and just about hangs on. Remember, it was Winfield that was leading the first Clubsport Trophy race at Brands Hatch a month or so ago, with a corner to spare when he got sideways on a wet and greasy road and ended up handing the victory to Paul Sheard and Aidan Hills in their MX-5. Well, this weekend, the best of the MX-5s is a little bit further back, and it looks like at the moment it's Chris Dawkins in the number 22 MX-5, the Mark III car that's the highest placed Mazda in the race, then side by side for second in the unofficial Mazda class, and that's the Gary Townsend car being overtaken going into the first corner by Darren Stapleton in his machine. Darren, not someone we've seen racing with the BRSCC an awful lot this year, but good to have him out here for the Clubsport Trophy race. Keeping up with them there was one of the Mark I MX-5s, that must be Scott Ferguson, who was by far and away the highest qualifying Mark I Mazda MX-5 on the grid. Back to Civic land now, and Bruce Winfield is still leading the race. No, he's not. Yes, he is, sorry. That's a back marker they're catching already, one of the BMW compacts that's been delayed at the start. So Winfield is still leading the way then. And a little bit of separation in the rest of the top 10, and then it all kicks off again further back. Keep an eye, though, to Darren Stapleton here in this very rapid 477 MX-5. And now I think that's actually Matt Pollard, you know, who's the first of the Mark I cars behind. Around the outside goes the number 11 car, being shared by Declan Lee and Richard Breland. And right in front of him now, the BMW Compact, being shared by Luke Browse and Ollie Taylor. And I think it's Ollie Taylor that's taking the first stint. Ollie was the runner-up in the TCR UK Championship last year. He's been giving Luke some driver coaching this season, as Luke's been contesting in the Compact Cup for the first time. And now they're teaming up together here for this Clubsport Trophy race. They've got the Ford Focus in there as well. That's the Bugner Ford Focus, car number 7. And the BMW under all sorts of pressure as it makes its way through the chicane then onto another lap. So at the head of the field then, it's Winfield that leads the way. Sharp in second, Taylor third, Daniel Reason up to fourth now, having just set the fastest lap as well, 1 minute 25.990. And the Bugner Focus here trying to dive back up the inside. This is the fight for 15th place, and the Focus goes through. And now we've got two compacts together, because that's the number 666 car of Rhys Claydon, the car that he competes in the BMW Compact Cup. And he's coming up against the Ollie Taylor and Luke Browse BMW in front. They are not necessarily separated into official BMW classes, Mazda classes, Honda Civic classes, although generally speaking that is kind of how it works. The BMWs are contesting Class E, but that means they're also in the same class as Matt Pollard, for example, in the MX-5. One of the compacts, I'm afraid, has gone around up at McLean's as it starts to really pelt it down with rain now. That's far side of the track. That's definitely going to be the wettest part of the circuit, I think, for the time being. The Stanbury BMW gets sideways, all right in front of Rhys Claydon, who did a brilliant job to avoid him. The Doble BMW runs into the gravel in avoidance as well, but that was a big, big slide there for James Stanbury, who's sharing that car with his father in this race, and they have already, unfortunately, gone a lap down and rather come a cropper in the conditions. Right, deep breath everybody, back through we go again. 5 laps in the books and we're down to 4 Civics at the front of the field now, so things have thinned out slightly. Who have we lost? That's the next question, isn't it? Well, we'll get to that in a moment, because Paul Taylor goes up the inside of Ben Sharp for second, Daniel Reason and Bruce Winfield there, so it's Max Lewis. Max Lewis has vanished somewhere. In fact, he's just dropped down into 6th place behind Ben Buckley in the Caterham, so he did come through, but some 6 seconds behind after a slow lap, so he must have had a moment with the impending rain, I think, as the erstwhile race leader and pole sitter indeed from this race, Max Lewis. But it's Winfield that still leads the way there. The top 4 covered by 1.2 seconds at the end of the 5th lap of racing. But Winfield is the adventurer here. He's leading them round. He's the first one to find out just how wet it is up at this part of the circuit, and so everyone else can sort of gauge from his car behaviour how hard they can push. So it's definitely a disadvantage to be the leader in this situation. Not that I think Bruce Winfield's going to be keen on giving the lead away here to Paul Taylor, or indeed Daniel Reason or Ben Sharp, who are now 3rd and 4th respectively. Winfield may not have a choice before too much longer, because Paul Taylor is moving alongside him now with renewed gusto to try and get this lead back away. I say back away from Bruce Winfield. I think Winfield has actually led every lap so far. I'm not entirely sure how he's managed that, but despite the fact he's clearly been struggling at times, he has managed to hang on so far, and he leads again now across the start-finish line with the headlights ablaze for all 3 of the top 3 Civics now. The battle on for second with Daniel Reason weaving around behind Paul Taylor, but the man that looks the most rapid of this lead group is Ben Buckley. And yes, the man in 5th place was quicker than everybody else in front of him as Paul Taylor goes around the outside of Bruce Winfield for the race lead through Redgate Corner, and Daniel Reason tries to follow him through as well. Through Hollywood they go, and finally is Bruce Winfield about to be demoted to 2nd place. Not without a fight, he thinks. He goes around the outside through the Craner curves. That gives him the inside line for the old hairpin, but Paul Taylor has got the lead away, and but then gets sideways immediately through the old hairpin and very nearly lost control altogether. But then Winfield was also having a moment of his own, and so Taylor gets the lead away then. It's Winfield 2nd, Reason 3rd, 4th then for Ben Sharp. But I was about to say they're being caught hand over fist now by Ben Buckley in the Caterham, who is taking full advantage of the battling going on in front of him to be able to really chase this lot down. He was only 2.5 seconds behind the top 4 at the start of the lap, but on the previous lap was over a second quicker than the leader. Daniel Reason is off now though. They were diving up the inside of one of the MX-5s there, and that's the Mark II MX-5 they were going past, and unfortunately that caught Daniel Reason out, and he ran out wide over the grass, loses 3rd position then to Ben Sharp, and the positions continue to change almost quicker than you can keep up with it really. The order, though, will be Paul Taylor that leads the way by 9/10 of a second at the end of the 7th lap of the race over Bruce Winfield, who is 2nd. Ben Sharp is 3rd. Ben Buckley came into 4th place, though you can see there Daniel Reason is in the process of re-overtaking him again down the pit straight after that grassy moment that he had at Coppice Corner. And then in 5th position will be 6th position will be Max Lewis. This is the Ford Capri, meanwhile, coming through, and that is the car of Mark Thomas, who runs in Class A, and I believe is the highest, no, he's the 2nd highest placed Class A car, because he's in the same class as Ben Buckley. So they've done a good job of working the class system out, though, because they're not necessarily 2 cars you would have put in the same class, just on the basis of they're 2 completely different cars with about 30 years of age difference between them, but performance-wise, they're not that dissimilar. Got the Honda Civic right behind him. That's the number 6 car of Alfie Jones. And then a real queue, actually, with the Darren Stapleton MX-5, the Chris Dawkins MX-5, and then the Gary Townsend and David Henderson MX-5 as well. Oh, someone's been off big style down the Craner curve. Look at the amount of mud that's been dragged onto the road there. It doesn't stop Alfie Jones from having a big look at the inside of Mark Thomas through the old hairpin. But Thomas with the rear-wheel drive, I was going to say traction from the Capri. Not much traction on show there, but he did get out of the corner reasonably well. Sadly, car 621, that's the Will Stevenson and Carl Garnett driven MX-5, has stopped at the chicane. That is Will Stevenson's car that he competes in the Master MX-5 Super Cup in. Oh, off though has gone Alfie Jones. Alfie Jones spins into the gravel going through Schwantz Curve. There was a change going on anyway there, I think, with the Darren Stapleton MX-5 gaining ground, but sadly Alfie Jones off the track now, and that might bring about a safety car, because there are now 2 or 3 cars stuck in potentially dangerous positions at various points around the circuit. This is the battle for 2nd place coming through then. The orange car there is Bruce Winfield. The blue and yellow and black car behind him is Ben Sharp in 3rd place. They're putting laps on some of the slower traffic now as well. Here comes the Capri making its way down to the chicane. Marshall's in attendance for the 621 car, the Stevenson and Garnett MX-5 that's gone off. But more MX-5s at play here. Then Chris Dawkins, who we did see racing in the MX-5 Super Cup a couple of seasons ago, and made a one-off appearance in the MX-5 Super Series, I seem to recall, earlier on this season, but he's under pressure now from the Townsend and Henderson car. Gary Townsend in Townsend Vehicle Hire liveried car, run by AK Automotive, which is the Henderson family team. So you can see the various links at play there in that car, and he goes up the inside of Dawkins through Redgate, who then tries to fight back, but there's a yellow flag out through the Craner curves. Presumably, yes, there is a car that's off at the Craners, and who might that be? Is that David Fender possibly that's gone off? Hard to tell. No, I don't think it is. I think it's actually whoever it is. They're being recovered anyway. I'm not entirely sure who that is that's off into the gravel. But either way, the car is being recovered by the live snatch vehicle and might actually be allowed to rejoin the race before too much longer. Right, in traffic, the lead gap is certainly not going up. It was 1.8 seconds at the start of the lap between Paul Taylor and Bruce Winfield. That is not 1.8 seconds now. In fact, I'd say the top three in here are covered by 1.8 seconds as they come out of the final corner once again, and with a bit more traffic delaying the leader there. Bruce Winfield has now felt that he's got a chance maybe to challenge Paul Taylor for the lead once again. They go across the line 1.3 seconds covering the top three, so I wasn't far wrong. Another change here, another place unfortunately being lost by Mark Thomas. Now at the inside goes the Townsend and Henderson MX-5. Chris Dawkins picks his way around the outside. Matt Pollard's in there too. And that looks like something vaguely Civic shaped also. No, it's a Ford Focus, isn't it? It's the number 7 car, the Bugner car, which has come through, by the way, from 23rd on the grid. And I reckon this overtake's going to put it somewhere near the top dozen or so. We'll see when they come across the start-finish line this time what order they've got themselves in. But Mark Thomas definitely struggling now in that Capri, which never was renowned for its wet weather capabilities, was it? Be it the road car or the racing versions. And he's definitely struggling at the moment. Oh, the leaders in traffic are side by side. And up the inside goes Bruce Winfield. Look at this fantastic racing as they duck and dive their way past the slower runners. And Paul Taylor was delayed going through McLean's. Bruce Winfield saw his opportunity and dived to the inside line into Coppice Corner. And he has now managed to wrestle his way back into the lead of the race. Bruce Winfield refuses to say die, does he? He then gets beaten down time and time again, but then always seems to be able to rebound and put himself back in a strong position. That's exactly what he's done there, and he slides his way through the chicane as, once again, the race leader. Well, fantastic racing out on the track then. Bruce Winfield has the lead away from Paul Taylor once again, with still the top three separated by only 1 second. Let's tear our eyes away from this action though and hand over to Lloyd, who's got some news from the pit lane.
Thank you, Andy. The pit window is now open, the cars are coming in, but it's raining, which is a little bit different to how we started the race. Our driver's going to change their tyres as well as changing the drivers. It's going to be interesting to see. Like I say, we're just seeing the first cars coming down, so we're going to keep an eye on what happens.
Well, thank you very much. Well, that first car coming in was Daniel Reason. This is interesting then, because Daniel was running in 4th position and he's taken the early choice pit. Now, all of these cars run on grooved tyres. That is one of the regulations for the Clubsport Trophy. They all run on grooved tyres. No one's out there on slicks, but of course, a fresher set of grooved tyres might give you a little bit more time, a little bit more grip, sorry, on a fully wet track. So that might be what's happening there with Daniel Reason. That pit stop taking place as others continue to circulate. Bruce Winfield still, though, is your race leader.
And again, we're seeing more drivers coming. Capri's coming in now. We're going to see where that turns up. Pulls up just in front of us. It looks like they're doing a tyre change as well. More cars coming in, this time just a driver changeover. They already started on wet tyres. Can start to see the groove in the tyres, so they already started on the wets. Just a driver change here for the Mini. And at the back there, the Mazda, again, just doing a driver change. So lots going on in the pits now. The pit window is open. It is only a 15-minute window, so there's a lot that they've got to do in a short space of time.
Well, there's an awful lot for the drivers to do out on the track as well. It's continuing to be extremely lively. Winfield has just come through to complete his 11th lap of the race. Still the race leader then, with Taylor second and Sharp in third. But you can see it's getting properly wet out there now. So even if they started with a slightly wet setup on the cars, I don't think any of them really anticipated this. Although the rain has been forecast all day. It was expected to arrive at some point during the race. We weren't entirely sure when. All sideways there through the old hairpin for the second place man, Paul Taylor. But yeah, lots of driver changes taking place, pit stops taking place down in the pit lane. None of the leading trio, though, have yet decided to pit. Ben Buckley has now moved into 4th position as a result of other people pitting, with the number 97 car now into the top 5. But of course, the order now starting to shake out. Look at this, there are almost more cars in the pit lane and on the track now. There goes the number 65 BMW. That's Mike and Mikey Doble, father and son combination. They both contest the BMW Compact Cup in separate cars, but they've teamed up together for this Clubsport Trophy race. The Taylor and Browse BMW comes through as well, and that car has yet to stop, by the way. So they are running back inside the top 15 again now. Leaders, though, come through the chicane. Bruce Winfield out onto the pit straight. Does he choose to pit this time? No, he's having far too much fun. And indeed, all three of the leading trio stay out. And it's definitely been a civic weekend so far in the Clubsport Trophy. At Brands Hatch, a slightly more tight and technical circuit, they were not as dominant, but this circuit does play nicely into their hands, actually. So the Honda Civics, we have three of the EP3 examples here running in the top three, proving tough to beat. Ben Buckley is still fourth, but he's now 20 seconds off the lead, which means he's about 19 seconds behind third place, and starting to struggle now. I think actually that in a way the heavier cars have a bit more stability now in these fully wet conditions. That's the Mini, fresh out of the pit lane. Keith Isett and Kevin Fulbrook sharing that car this weekend, and they do their best to get out of the way of the leading trio. Daniel Reason, though, has left the pit lane, so we need to remember that. Daniel Reason was the first car to pit, so he leaves the pit lane, the highest placed car then to have made its pit stop. Once the other three Civics have stopped, it'll be interesting to see where he comes out in relation to them, because in clear track now, he might be able to go a bit quicker than the leaders and may yet leapfrog them and get into the race lead.
Thanks, Andy. There's a lot happening down here in the pits, and what we're seeing with the driver changes is some of the adjustments that are having to be done, not just with the seat belts, but actually with the seats themselves. We've seen them putting some padding in. They're now going around, checking the tyre pressures, pumping them up, making sure that they've got the right pressures to go out there and race. And it's, well, a lot happening. Just, that just shows how chaotic a pit stop can be. See what's happening down here with this Mazda as well. Again, adjustments happening in the car between the drivers different shapes and sizes, so trying to get all the adjustments ready in time is manic. And we're just going to quickly jump in here. Declan, how was that first stint?
It was great. There was a lot of spins and it was a bit close, but I always feel safe when I'm in a Mazda, so.
Yeah, in terms of handing over, is there anything you've been able to say to give some feedback on what the track's like?
The track's great at the moment, as long as you stay on the outside and don't go on the gravel.
Okay, some good advice. Thanks very much for your time. It's back over to you, Andy.
That's solid advice, isn't it? I think. Oh, that's a shame. The Stanbury BMW's off again. Not for the first time that it's been in strife in this race, it must be said, and it's well and truly beached in the gravel trap. I think that's Redgate, but it could equally be the chicane. It was hard to tell, wasn't it? Absolute pandemonium in the pit stop. The pit stop there we saw for the number 99 MX-5, the Nick Rutter and Mark Swarbrick car. They got the tyre pressure hose caught on the windscreen wiper, and that was something I'm sure they hadn't planned for, but it's just one of those things they hadn't, probably when they practiced the pit stops, didn't have the windscreen wipers running, and it's just something as simple as that can cost you actually quite a bit of time. Right, let's try and regroup, shall we then? The race leaders come down the hill into the chicane. Still Winfield leading, Taylor second, Sharp in third position. None of these three, though, have yet made their way in for their mandatory pit stop, and we're now about halfway through this race. In, though, dives Paul Taylor.
And we're just going to quickly see if we can grab one of the drivers. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, real good.
It was good fun out there, yeah?
Brilliant, yeah, really good. It just started to rain as we went out, and then it chucked it down. It's really, really interesting.
What feedback have you been able to give as part of your handover?
Basically, just to tell Alan that there's a load of gravel up at McLean's.
Okay, so stuff's already coming where people have been spinning?
Yeah, some have gone off there, so not only is it wet, but as you hit the gravel, it's even worse than the wet, basically. It just slide on the gravel.
And in terms of adjustments between the drivers, because obviously you've got different driving styles, seats are set up differently. Is there much that you have to do between drivers?
Not for us really. We're pretty much the same. We just get in and tighten the belts back up. The lads have changed all the dampers, softened it up because it was on a dry setup when I went out. But Al's a pretty good driver, so he'll go and have some fun now. I hope we can get to the front.
Well, I'll let you go and dry off, and thanks for taking the time out to have a chat with us.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Great stuff. Well, recovery process then ongoing here at Redgate. It was Redgate that the Stanbury BMW had gone off. So let's head back down and see who else Lloyd's found in the pit lane.
Again, Andy, we're seeing a lot happening. This time we've not got a driver changeover, but the cars still have to come into the pits to do a stop. We're seeing here some the crew going around checking the pressures and getting ready for the car to go back out. These Honda Civics have been quick round here. This is one of the older Civics. Not quite as quick as the newer ones, but the front-wheel drive of the Hondas appears to make them good in these wet conditions. They're not so tricky to drive, We're seeing a lot of problems with the rear-wheel drive cars, the Mazdas and the BMW compacts that are out there. They're just twitching a little bit, so it's going to be interesting to see how these front-wheel drive Hondas and some of the other front-wheel drive cars like the Minis compare out there in the wet.
Yeah, it's a good point actually, Lloyd. The front-wheel drive car's definitely coming to the fore. We saw the rear-wheel drive Caterham, didn't we? Ben Buckley was going with the Civics early on, and then when it really started to rain, he started to struggle. The same definitely true of Mark Thomas in the Ford Capri. So the front-wheel drive cars seem to have the edge in these conditions. Now this is a very lonely Bruce Winfield. He'll be wondering where all his friends have gone. Well, I can tell him they've gone into the pit lane. In has come Ben Sharp. In has also come Paul Taylor. We know that Daniel Reason had been in already a few laps earlier on. All contact, and around goes the number 26 BMW that was, up at McLean's, and it's now pointing the wrong way in the gravel trap. And that's the Hayes and Subiani BMW Compact. Not a car that we see racing in the Compact Cup yet, but maybe dipping their toe in the water quite literally this weekend to the BRSCC. Maybe they'll be along to race with us again full-time next year. Number 28 is in, the MX-5 too, so starting to see that's the Watson Pemberton Mark 1 car. And we're getting towards the end now of our pit stop window. Still about half a dozen or so cars that have yet to stop from the top half of the field, but the majority of the field now have made their way in. But yeah, Bruce Winfield yet to stop then. He had the clear track, I suppose. Out goes Paul Taylor there. Oh, and off. That's the dark BMW again for the second time it's been off now. Had that spin at the first corner. And unfortunately, that BMW, the number 210 car, off into the gravel up at Coppice Corner. And the E36 BMW may now be out of the race. It's going to need some recovery there to get unbeached from the Coppice gravel trap.
Okay, one of the BMW compact cars is coming. We're just going to try and see if we can catch what's happening. Bear with me on this one, Andy.
Lloyd jogging his way up then. That's the Ollie Taylor and Luke Browse BMW then that's come in. I wouldn't mind maybe catching a chat with whichever driver was in. I think it was Ollie Taylor that was in for that first stint.
So we've got a driver changeover going on. In the cars, right. We'll grab a chat with the driver in a second, but what we're seeing are the drivers having a conversation, having a discussion about what's happening out on track. Let's see if we can quickly have a chat with the driver. That's a little bit of interesting weather conditions out there for you.
Yeah, it's certainly changing.
Yeah, and when you think about what the start was like to where you're at now, what advice were you able to give as you were handing over?
Just lines really, that's the main thing. So it's changed now, it's obviously fully wet. Some parts of the track are slicker than others. Obviously standard wet lines right around the outside, but it seems to be a little bit of a mixture. Just said to Luke, you've got to keep it on the road and find your grip, find your feel.
We're hearing there's some gravel off at McLean's as well, which is making it a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, it certainly is. Normally, well, I actually went to take the wet. I was trying to, as it started to rain, find the wet lines and came across the gravel, and someone spun on the inside. So, a bit of luck that I took that particular line on that lap. A bit of chance, really, but yeah, it's a good bit of fun.
Yeah, in terms of these sort of Clubsport Trophy races where you've got the driver changeovers, is it something you enjoy doing, handing the car over to someone else?
Yeah, it certainly is. I've done a little bit of two-driver, semi-endurance kind of racing. Luke's desperate to get into some things like that, so I think it's a great little taster, and just shows you, gives you a bit of experience and sort of what to expect when you do it.
We've been watching the cars go around. Obviously, the BMW Compact is a rear-wheel drive car. We've seen the Honda Civics go around. They're front-wheel drive. They seem to be a little bit quicker. Is that just because of that thing of being front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive in these conditions?
I think so, yes, the usability of the car. The Hondas are actually very quick. When I was in qualifying at the classes, obviously they've had to separate the classes, and they're about 3 seconds quicker in the dry, just by pure straight line speed, I think. The BMW Compacts, they haven't got a limited slip diff, so whilst they're rear-wheel drive, it's like ice. It's literally, because the inside wheel just spins all the back, and you are just trying to keep the thing on the circuit around the fast corners. So yeah, I think, and I'm sure there's an array of abilities of people out there. You don't quite know who you're coming across when you meet someone. I went quite late into the stint, so you were having people come out of the pit lane that were their first laps. So So even though a car might have overtaken you a little while ago, you don't know who's behind the wheel and if they've stayed in the seat and are having another stint, or if they're totally new to it. So goes through a bit of a phase where it's a bit tricky, and you have to just be a bit sensible. And obviously it's not going to be one in a lap, but you can certainly throw it away in a lap. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. It's going to be an interesting way to see what happens in the next, what have we got now, 20 minutes or so?
I think, I'm not exactly sure on times, but I think it's about 20 minutes to go. Just said to Luke, just keep it on the track. You know, there it's every couple of laps, someone has gone off. And I think, you know, we don't have any real understanding of who's where we are. You know, we're just a bit of end of season fun in Luke's car. I know he was, I think I handed it over a little bit early because it was going really well. I know he likes these conditions and just thought he can have a bit more fun instead of me going round and round. So just said, just keep it on the track, and gave him some tips for lines, and hopefully he can keep it on the black stuff and bring it home.
Brilliant. Thank you for your time. We'll let you go and dry off because it's a little bit damp out here in the pit lane.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a good idea for you as well, Lloyd. Go and find somewhere warm and dry, because it can't be particularly pleasant out there, but great work keeping us up to date with what's going on track. There is Luke Browse then in the car that Ollie Taylor, who we've just heard from, he's just taken over that car then for the second stint, and Luke, who's come out of Caterham Racing, which of course is the same arena that Ollie was racing in before he turned his attention to touring car racing, which very much is where his priorities lie these days. Runner-up in TCR UK last year, he's done a couple of TCR Europe races as well in the last 12 months or so. And interesting to hear that he's having a look now, the pair of them maybe, at some endurance racing. I can suggest maybe a few BRSCC championships they could have a little look at. Anyway, Luke Browse enjoying himself out there at the moment. Funnily enough, never far away from Caterham's, is he? That's Ben Buckley's car that's now coming through, I think, to lap him actually, the number 42 Caterham 270R, which is in third position. The pit stops have all now been completed. The order has sort of almost fallen back into some sort of a understandable order, and I can tell you it is Bruce Winfield that leads the way by 2.9 seconds over Ben Sharp in the Civic in second place, with Buckley third, Paul Taylor is fourth, and Darren Stapleton I believe will come through, well, possibly actually outside the top five. I think he's the last one to pit, so we're still waiting for the timing screen to update on him. Up to the top of the circuit we go then. Number 99 MX5 comes through. That's the Rutter and Swarbrick car that's running 14th at the moment, and right behind it on track is car treble 6, which is a lap behind it. That's Rhys Clayton in the BMW. But everyone now started to try and figure out exactly where they are. It was interesting to hear from Ollie Taylor there that even he doesn't really know what position that car is in. They're just sort of racing everyone they come up against, but he is they've dropped outside the top 15 again now, but still running pretty well, it must be said. Down into the braking zone, the chicane comes this MX5 and BMW battle. Not often you get to see these two particular cars racing against each other. That's one of the joys of this BRSCC Clubsport Trophy. And Rhys Clayton gets a better exit there from the chicane than the Rutter and Swarbrick MX5. And will pull alongside, but in a straight line. Well, how does this one work out? Pretty even, actually, between the two. That's impressive. The BMW are a bit heavier, but as I said, in the wet conditions, that's not necessarily a disadvantage. And he goes right round the outside. And that was, I believe, 4 position, that one as well. Yeah, they're into 15th place now, is the Clayton car, which is sharing with Stephen Daly. Actually, only 1 position ahead of the Luke Browse and Ollie Taylor BMW. Pit window then is now closed, so everyone must have made their stops, and I believe they have. And so we now move in then to the final 12 minutes or so of racing in actual fact. And the 99 car of Rutter and Swarbrick running in 14th place now then. In front of it, immediately in front of it, is car number 55, which is the Ryan Cook Mini. That car is a lap behind it at this stage of the race, but yeah, the order then, Winfield leading the way, Sharp second, Buckley third, Taylor fourth in his Civic, then Darren Stapleton into the top 5 now. That's a good effort, that, from 13th on the grid, with Max Lewis, the pole sitter, having dropped unfortunately down to 6th position in the latter stages. There he is, right on cue, coming through McLean's corner. In 7th place is car number 97, which is another car that's made quite a lot of progress, isn't it? Because that car is Andrew Bond's Honda Civic that started down in 18th on the grid. He's into 7th place now. Then it's the Declan Lee and Richard Breland number 11 MX5 in 8th position. 9th is the Townsend and Alan Henderson MX5. And 10th, the Mark 1 MX5 of Matt Pollard. So that is your top 10. The Dobles are 11th. Chris Dawkins is in... 12th, excuse me. Daniel Reason is 11th, Dobles 12th, Dawkins in 13th place, then Clayton and Daly 14th, Rutter and Swarbrick 15th, having just lost that position on the previous lap as we saw, and then Luke Browse and Ollie Taylor in 16th position at the moment. So we're into the final 10 minutes of racing then. The lead gap is 5.2 seconds between Winfield and Sharp, and on the previous lap Winfield was the quickest. Oh, and off has gone Max Lewis. The car that started on pole position has now gone off into the gravel trap from 6th position. and sadly looks rather beached. Sometimes in the wet conditions the gravel becomes a bit more compact and sometimes skate over the top of it, but it's very deep gravel trap at well, most corners actually at Donington Park. You're often travelling quite quickly, so they need those deep gravel traps to stop you if you go off, and they've stopped him all right, but now he can't get going again. So Max Lewis out of the race, and looks as though he's going no further. Battle pack coming through here, that's the Capri of Mark Thomas in amongst all of this, and Thomas has fallen well off the lead lap now, unfortunately. The number 11 car, though, is running well. That's the car that's in 8th position, Declan Lee and Richard Breland, and they're about to gain more ground, of course, as a result of Max Lewis going off. So they are in a battle, actually, with that number 223 MX-5, the Townsend and Henderson car. They are fighting for position, fighting for what will become 7th place. The Mark Thomas Ford Capri, though, not on the same lap as those two at the moment. They drop down the hill. Bruce Winfield there, the race leader, coming through behind. It would be nice, in a way, wouldn't it, to see Bruce Winfield win this race after the disaster that befell him on the very final corner at Brands Hatch, where he made a mistake in slippery conditions. It was easily done, I suppose, but that orange Honda Civic you can see coming across the start-finish line now, it's just completed its 22nd lap of racing, and it is leading the way, and it has a 5.8 second cushion now as well, so he's not under quite as much pressure. And unlike at Brands Hatch, where he was in this situation going into the final 5 minutes or so of racing, where he was leading reasonably comfortably, he does not have a rapid MX-5 catching him at a rate of knots. So he does still have lots of traffic to deal with, though. He's got MX-5s around him in the shape of the 223 car, first and foremost, that's about to go a lap down. Mark Thomas in the Capri, who, I don't know where he's lost this time, because actually he seems every bit as quick as the MX-5s around him, or at least not much slower than them at this stage, but possibly a bit of a slow pit stop there. It's always tricky when you're on your own, because you don't have that co-driver there to help you out in the pit stops, as we heard Lloyd describing earlier on. If you're going it alone, you still have to get out of the car and then back in again, but that whole process takes a little bit of time, and you don't necessarily have anyone on standby to help you with the belts, etc. Bruce Winfield then splits these two for the time being. The Area Motorsport Run Honda Civic moves through, and just wants to try and keep out of trouble now in the closing stages. He'll be replaying in his mind, I'm sure, all of the late drama that befell him at Brands Hatch last time out. Capri, though, not easy to overtake because it is very quick in a straight line. Next up, oh, in fact, the Capri goes off wide onto the grass. That's one way of going through. The Ford Capri never did make a particularly good rally car. The Ford Escort maybe, but the Capri very much spent its time back in period racing in touring car races, rather successfully actually. The British Saloon Car Championship was known back then, but yeah, the wet conditions sometimes were a bit of an Achilles heel for the spectacular looking and spectacularly driven, in this instance, for Capri. Leader goes through, then 23 laps in the books, and despite the traffic, he was only about 4/10 slower than Ben Sharp in second position. Sharp in turn has an even bigger cushion though over Paul Taylor in third position. In fact, most of the top 10 have sort of separated themselves from each other now, so barring any mistakes, and there have been plenty of those so far, it's not hugely likely, I don't think, that we're going to see any changes. Yellow flags out there though, telling me that someone else has made a mistake through Starkey's and Schwantz curve maybe. Bruce Winfield, oh, in fact, there we are, there's a mini off at the top of the hill. I think that's Christian White's 155 car that has beached itself actually up against the barriers there through Schwantz. Possibly a little bit of connection maybe with that barriers, could have done some damage to the car. Mark Thomas comes through, still racing away with the, I think it's now Alan Henderson driving that number 223 car. Alan Henderson, former MX-5 Super Cup champion, doing rather well this weekend, but struggling to get past that. Still fairly rapid for Capri. Winfield then turns through the chicane. 5 minutes still to go then in this second ever BRSCC Clubsport Trophy race, and let's hope that the immediate success that this series has had, these couple of races have had this year, might lead to a series or even a full championship for 2020. I think that the interest is definitely there, and it does something that really no other series does out there, I don't think, because it caters almost specifically to BRSCC championships already, and all of these one-make championships that are running successfully underneath the BRSCC banner, the Civics, BMWs, MX-5s, etc. But it's always fascinated me to know how they would compare against each other. That's exactly what the Clubsport Trophy does. It gives us a chance to sort of throw all of these cars together, an unlikely bunch of cars to see racing out there together, but they produce great racing. They've all got their own individual classes to race for as well, but as we've seen, there's quite a lot of intermingling. Okay, so the top 3 cars in the race are still Class B Honda Civics, but then you've got the Class A Caterham of Buckley in fourth, the Class C MX5s, plural in fact, of Stapleton and Breland, fifth and sixth. You've got Class E cars even running inside the top 15. The BMW Compact of Browse and Taylor is leading in Class E at this stage. Oh, except it goes off right on cue to out of the chicane and has outbraked itself there into the final turn. Luke Browse with a little mistake there, despite the fact that Ollie Taylor was saying he enjoys these conditions. It's still very easy to get things wrong. Such a fine line between success and mistakes. But Luke Browse has rejoined. There he is. Look, did that lose him a position though? It did. He's out of the top 16 now, definitely. He's dropped down to 17th place, just behind the Max Lewis car, which has been recovered from the gravel trap. And despite being a couple of laps off the overall race leader now, Max Lewis is at least still circulating. It's the best part of 2 laps off the lead anyway now. Bruce Winfield, as you can see, the race leader coming up now to lap Luke Browse as he comes through Hollywood. Drops down the hill through Crater Curves. Got to pick his moments here. He knows he's quicker than the BMW. We heard Ollie Taylor as well saying that the Civics just naturally are a bit more powerful, but they definitely have that advantage of front-wheel drive. Luke Browse there scrabbling for grip out of the old hairpin. Driving on the curb probably doesn't help either though. And in the end makes it quite easy for Bruce Winfield to come through. There's Max Lewis, the white and fluorescent orange Civic, which in the early stages was battling with this black and orange Civic for the overall race lead, but how things change. Max Lewis slipped back eventually after initially being a part of that lead battle, had a spin as it started off as it started to rain earlier on, and then another one when it was properly wet. Beats into the gravel trap, had to be recovered at Redgate Corner. May go another lap down here to Bruce Winfield before the checkered flag flies. I reckon we'll have 2 more laps after this one. There's time for 2 more laps anyway. We'll see whether we get them both in because the light is rather fading. These cameras that we use make the conditions look a little bit brighter than they are. It's almost pitch black out there, I can tell you right now, so the driver's doing a really good job just to see where they're going. The impending gloom. Across the line goes the race leader Bruce Winfield, 1 minute and 37 on the clock as he crossed the line, and he's lapping in the 1:36s, so he might squeeze an extra lap in. They may choose though just to end it as he next comes through. We'll see what happens. He's 7.7 seconds though ahead of Ben Sharp, still in second position. He's 12.9 ahead of Paul Taylor, who is quite comfortably the fastest man on the track. Paul Taylor's last lap was a 1 minute 32.3, which was 4 and a bit seconds quicker than the race leader Bruce Winfield. Now, traffic, I'm sure, had a small part to play in that, but we followed Bruce through most of that previous lap, and I didn't really see him getting too held up by slower runners. Certainly wasn't held up by Max Lewis there, who's fully aware of the fact that he's being shown blue flags, and so lets the race leader go by unchallenged. Yeah, that was a strange one then. Paul Taylor may yet be able to challenge for second place at that rate. He's only got a couple of laps to do this, of course, but he could catch Ben Sharp, not beyond the realms of possibility. Brooklyn still fourth, with Stapleton fifth, then Liam Breland sixth, Townsend and Henderson seventh, then Daniel Reason, Matt Pollard and Andrew Bond rounding out the top 10. All of those cars, though, fairly well spaced out, with the top 5 still on the lead lap. So Bruce Winfield has lapped everyone up to and including 6th place Declan Lee and Richard Breland. Through the chicane with just enough time maybe on the clock to squeeze through for one more lap. The Area Motorsport Civic scrabbling for traction out to the chicane, and yet we are on to the final lap of the race now. Crosses the line with about 5 seconds still to go, but as long as you have started a lap before the time runs out, then usually, at the discretion of the clerk of the course at least, you are allowed to complete that lap. So 3 goes on to the final lap of the race then, with another 1.9 miles of the Donington Park National Circuit standing between Bruce Winfield and the race victory. But I'm not giving him the trophy yet, because we saw what happened at Brands Hatch. He's not under the same sort of intense pressure from the second place car, in this case Ben Sharp, as he was from the Porsche Naden Hills driven MX5 last time out, but he's still got to negotiate the back markers. It's still very wet and slippery out there. He's been sliding around even on the start of this lap, so a mistake could happen. I wouldn't wish it upon him though, because it would, as I said, be nice to see Bruce bring this one home on this occasion. But he's very, very wide there at McLean's, looking for the grit there. That is the traditional wet racing line, but you're flirting with disaster there, because if you do get it wrong, you've got less room for error because you're already right against the edge of the track. But he's finding good traction out there. He's still pushing on here, even right at the end of the race. and trying to improve his lap times all the time. The fastest laps, though, were set earlier on, actually. Every single classes A, B, C and E, all set their fastest laps on the 4th lap of the race, just before the rain really arrived with a vengeance. Into the chicane, though, they come for the final time, and one more back marker, perhaps the Alfa Romeo 156 to be negotiated, but Bruce Winfield this time makes it to the flag in first position and wins the BRSCC Clubsport Trophy race here at Donington Park. A sensational early battle between himself and the other Honda Civics out there. It will be a Civic 1-2-3 as well, with Ben Sharp coming home in second position, 7.7 seconds back at the flag, and Paul Taylor, despite that late charge, didn't quite get there in time. He's in third place though, and only 13 seconds off the eventual winner. Brilliant racing all round there, though, some cracking entertainment, and I think the BRSCC Clubsport Trophy can definitely be branded a success, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in the future for this series. I think it's got a bright future ahead of it. Here's the result then. The victory goes to Winfield, Sharp in second and Taylor third, with Ben Buckley in fourth position and Darren Stapleton in fifth. Then it was Liam Breland, Townsend and Henderson, with Reason, Pollard and Bond rounding out the top 10. Class E in the end was won by the Luke Browse and, it was won by Matt Pollard, in the MX-5, with Clayton and Daly getting second place in Class E from the Dobles in third. Luke Browse fell down to 18th place there by the flag after a very promising first stint from Ollie Taylor. Quite a few non-finishers there, but everyone enjoyed themselves, especially, I'm sure, our race winner Bruce Winfield, who finally gets that winner's trophy.
Bruce, well done on the Class B and overall win here at Donington in the BRSCC Clubsport Trophy. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was hard work with the weather conditions and the tyres we've got to use. The tyres we use in that were the Civic Cup control tyre, so not ideal in the wet, but yeah, it was entertaining.
Yeah, in fact, there was quite a few of the Civics there at the front, which kind of makes you think, that the conditions were just right for a front-wheel drive car.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, like I say, back to the tyres again a little bit. Some of the Civic Cup guys came in and put Range Sports on, a more wet tyre. Because they changed wheels, though, it made a longer pit stop. So obviously they weren't fast enough to gain that time back. But the guys in the Civic Cup, great bunch of guys, fast cars, fast guys. So yeah, it's nice to be at the front.
And what are your thoughts on the Clubsport Trophy? Obviously, it's a mix of classes. We're hearing rumours that it's going to be more permanent next year. Is that something that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun, and I think obviously it's 45 minutes, and with the pit stop, it makes it a little bit more exciting. The Civic Cup races aren't, just a 15-minute dash, but the pit stop and stuff makes it a lot more exciting. We enjoyed the one at Brands Hatch, finished second in that one. Unfortunately, didn't get the win quite, but yeah, it's a lot more. It's great fun.
Fantastic. Well, we wish you all the best. It's been great seeing you out there racing. Hopefully we'll see you again next season, but take the time now to enjoy the victory both overall and class.
Yeah, definitely see us again next year.
Ben, congratulations on the Class A win here in the Clubsport Trophy. Manic racing out there, particularly with the changing weather conditions.
Oh, it was incredible. I'd been watching the weather beforehand and had put wet tyres on in the hope that it would rain, and it came through. But it was just so slippy, particularly in the Caterham with the rear-wheel drive, any power, and the back stepping out all over the place. So yeah.
At the beginning, it looked like you were giving the Honda Civics a fair old fight, and you were mixing it up with them. Was that something that you were quite relishing? Because that must be quite scary, being so low down in a Caterham.
Very. The first couple of laps, I was in amongst the four of them, and I'm thinking, this is getting a bit close now. I'm not sure they can see me, and we're coming 2-3 abreast through the corners. I thought, I'll back out. I'll just follow them for a bit, and it's a bit safer. And then the rain came, so.
No, brilliant racing. Congratulations on your class win. And will we see you next year when the Clubsport Trophy becomes more permanent?
Oh, I would say almost certainly. It's been fantastic fun.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ben.
Cheers. Thank you.
So, congratulations on the Class C win. Manic out there. Absolutely manic. Well, what did you do about the weather?
Unbelievable. I mean, all day been looking up at the sky, hoping it'd be okay. Could see it splitting on sitting in the car at the start, but then I thought could lend itself an opportunity at the same time. And it did, so it was just a case of holding on for dear life. And it all went to plan. You never know where you're at until you come in at the end, so you just hope it's gone to plan, and thankfully today it has, so absolutely delighted.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is, you're in a rear-wheel drive car. It's got, quite lively rear end. Was that something that you had to try and manage throughout the race?
Just reminds me of karting sort of 20, 30 years ago when I first started karting as a teenager, so I suppose it all came flooding back in a way, so the corner curves were a little bit dodgy at times as well, but keeping off the curbs, just trying to be sensible and bring it home, so it's gone to plan today. Could have just easily gone the other way though, so yeah.
Enjoyed the Clubsport Trophy though, being out there with different cars and coming away with some silverware.
Been in the Super Cup in the past and always done one make, so it's good to be out there with different cars, obviously different cars, different characteristics and that, so sometimes you lose out, sometimes you gain in time. I suppose that's what the Clubsport Trophy is all about, you know, variety of cars and that, so yeah, absolutely fantastic. So,
well, congratulations, go and enjoy the well-deserved class victory.
I'll tip some beer in here later, so thank you very much.
Cheers.
Okay.
Matt, well done on the Class E victory. It's been fun, the Clubsport Trophy here at Donington.
Well, ever since I saw it was announced earlier on this year, I knew I wanted to take part in it because endurance racing, and especially multi-class racing, to someone like me, club drivers, appeals quite a lot. I'm a seasoned driver now in the Mark 1s, so I thought I'd give this a shot. I knew if it rained, Mark 1 would be decent in the wet. I started 19th, I've just been told I finished 8th overall. So above some classes, that's all right. It was just about keeping it on the black stuff, really. Learning, because I've been around here on the national in all the wet stuff before, so just knew if I did it again, I'll be all right. So.
Yeah, as you say, it's quite good to have the multi-class racing. It's something that we don't see too much of these days, unless you're in something like Le Mans or the World Endurance class. So it's good to see that, and good to see you out there mixing it up.
Oh yeah, it was wicked. That was my last weekend of the Mazdas at Silverstone. Wasn't the greatest weekend, so finish on a high like that this season is exactly what I wanted. So. And it was good driving all around, I think. It was good people out there. So.
Well, we wish you all the best for the winter. Take the silverware home. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much.